Welcome all to Concurrent number 10, Innovations on the Physician Side. My name is Rodrigo Teixeira, and I'm the head of Biome and the Digital Health Solutions with Novartis Canada. We are thrilled to be sponsoring eHealth 2022, a program that's super in line with our values and aspirations at Novartis to foster and build collaboration with the healthcare ecosystem to together tackle Canada's biggest healthcare challenges. This session includes two 15-minute oral presentations. If you have any questions or comments for your speakers, please type them directly in the Zoom chat and we will address them as time allows. You are also encouraged to connect with the speakers after the session on our virtual platform. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome to a virtual stage our first presenter, Dr. Karim Jessa, CIO, Hospital for Sick Children. Welcome, Karim. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. I guess I better tell people that I'm not the CIO, I'm the CMIO. Otherwise, my CIO, who I report to, will be very upset that I've taken her job. But anyway, let's go forward. So I'm really delighted to be here with you all. And I'm just trying to get the slides up. And there we go. All right. So I'm here to talk to you about implementing computer-assisted physician documentation at SickKids. And a little shout out to our wonderful partners, our vendor partners at 3M Canada, who've been really supportive and helped us achieve some of these great innovations. And this is really a part two of our first session, which we did last year, where we described our program and we had a poster and we presented what we were planning to do. So this will be a follow-up, and hopefully we'll come back to you again next year with some more results as well. And so the background is really to try to balance what all hospitals are doing right now in terms of getting the clinical documentation by our clinicians accurate enough so that our coders can submit the appropriate codes to the funding agencies so that we can get remunerated for some of the amazing work that we're all doing. And how do we leverage technology as we're all moving towards electronic health records so that we can decrease some of the cognitive burden on our clinicians and leverage the technologies and the investments that we've really made. So what's the importance of clinical documentation improvement? So clinical documentation drives everything we do, from communicating with our circle of care, with submitting what we're doing to our funding agencies, as I mentioned earlier, and can also help us with research and best standards of care as well. And it's really important for us to be able to capture the clinical story accurately and then capture the administrative story so that we could get the appropriate remuneration and funding. So we said, what technologies are out there to be able to get some of this information, which is really unstructured right now in many formats, whether it's typing or whether it's using dictation. How do we get this information into the record so that we're able to continue to leverage that technology? So it uses a technology called natural language understanding technology to present contextually relevant information, clinical insights in real time, and that's the key. It's real time. So the example is here is really with something called aspiration pneumonia, which is a condition that you get when you aspirate or you swallow things and it goes into the lung, and you can get that happening. So the program will trigger a nudge if you have documentation of pneumonia, if there's evidence of aspiration pneumonia, or if there's an NG tube or dysphagia that gets dictated or written about, and if there's no documentation of ventilator-associated pneumonia as well. And so the requirement to resolve the nudge would be to document aspiration pneumonia if the system found it out. And we have an example to show you as well. So here's the example, and this is using M-Modal 3M technology with Engage software. And I think you'll be able to get the idea. And we'll pause the video so that we can show that to you. All right, and I think this is just the next one. So
16-year-old presented with increased work of breathing, oxygen desaturations, period. Chest X-ray findings of left lower lobe compatible with pneumonia, period. completed 6 days of ceftriaxone, stepped down to androcephroxime, completed 10-day course of antibiotics, period.
Okay, just pause there. Perfect. So if we pause there, you'll notice that the physician has dictated these things on the left-hand side. The system has gone in and said, okay, there's pneumonia was documented. Now it says, please mention if it was present on admission. And you saw that came up in real time. And that can be done with dictation, or if you're actually typing it out. And we've got I'll explain to you how we did it as well. And it says pneumonia as a causative agent. So please document the causative agent and type of pneumonia if possible. So the clinician would actually see this as they were dictating or documenting, and they could alter their documentation based on what they were nudged about on the right-hand side, and it would drop off. So let's hit the video again.
New paragraph. Bacterial pneumonia due to mycoplasma pneumonia present on admission, period.
And there you go. So there you saw that it knocked off. Now, what does that do? That allows us to document properly so that the coders can actually go in and say, oh, the following things were already included. So now I don't have to go back in and ask the clinician, a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months after to say, hey, that patient that you saw, was there aspiration pneumonia or was there anything? Because it has to be documented for the coders to be able to submit that code. So it's a little bit of, can we do it in real time to be able to do it? All right. So hopefully you have that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those at the end. All right, next slide. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, you have to create rule creation. You have to run it in the background in silent mode, and then you put it in active mode. And how do you do these things, the creation and verification of the clinical rules going forward? So this is how we created the rules. So we have to sort of we use 26 rules. Now, 3M have a number of rules, so you have to target the conditions that you want to be able to do. And there's different approaches to that. So, you can turn on all the rules, but you're not going to turn them on in active mode. So you're going to turn them on in silent mode. We looked at some target conditions specific to pediatrics and SickKids, and we looked at sepsis, pneumonia, malnutrition, and respiratory failure as well. And we tried to find what are the documents that we tried to target so that we are able to capture the information accurately. So we decided to target the discharge summary because that was the discharge summary was the document type that should be a summary of all the information or all the activities that happened during the admission, including the admission, progress notes, and then the final as well. Running it in silent mode also allows us to identify and target the most important diagnoses with the greatest impact. And then what education opportunities are there as well. So our timelines, we created the rules and then we had them running in silent mode. Now, for us to be able to use this, you needed to make sure that we had the engine running in the background. Initially, we started off with just those people who are using Fluency for dictation. We found that we weren't getting as much information as we needed to. So what we did was we ran Fluency, we auto-launched Fluency for everybody. Now, they didn't have to use dictation. They could actually use typing, but we would be able to capture that information in the background to be able to say, what's the sensitivity and specificity? And what are the actual rules that we need to be able to target and the conditions. So when you look at these rules that we're looking at, it really talks about the number of physicians that the rule would fire for, which is in this area, and then the documentation opportunity. So ideally, you'd want to say, how can we target the most number of physicians as well as have the highest percentage of documentation opportunity? So we decided the sepsis present on admission would be useful and the pneumonia present on admission. So how do we refine these and be able to then target the clinicians a little bit appropriately? And why is sepsis present on admission so important? Because if somebody comes in and presents with fever, cough, purulent sputum, and pleuritic chest pain, we know that it's pneumonia, or it might be, they could be septic as well. But if this is a specific instance, is if you have to say it's present on admission, because otherwise it becomes a hospital-acquired condition, which is a type 2 compared to a type 1. So present on admission is type 1. It says this is why you admitted the patient. A type 2 or something that's hospital-acquired may work against the hospital to be able to look at the harm index as well. So really important to be able to try to do this. Clinicians, I have to say, we're not always good at it. We have to be able to be doing this a little bit better. The second example is really to say what number of physicians would the rule fire for. So if you look at malnutrition versus urosepsis, we get a bigger bang for the buck with the malnutrition at 613 physicians. The documentation opportunity is about the same. So when we do the rule refinement, we will say we're going to target malnutrition because I think this is where we can get the most value from the tool. So in conclusion, implementing and utilizing CAPD gives us a data-driven approach to help to enhance our CDI program. And it's working hand. It doesn't replace the CDI specialists or the coders, but it actually helps us. It helps us work together so that we can do these things right at the point of care. It really makes it important. It makes it really important to be able to do that. The Canadian context is different from the US context. The US context has armies and armies of physicians or nurses on the wards itself, combing through the chart to be able to go back to the clinician while the patient is admitted to say, can you refine your documentation because our reimbursement is related to it. In Canada, we have small teams. I remember when we onboarded a US physician at SickKids, they came to me and said, Karim, how come I don't get these coding queries so much? Why am I not being bombarded? They're not asking to be bombarded, but why am I not? I said, well, our motivations are a little bit different north of the border as well. So really important for us to try to decrease some of the alert fatigue and the inbox maintenance as well. So that's what we did. And I just want to give a shout out to our amazing team, both at SickKids and 3M. Michael Shao and the team is there. What we've done is we've turned it on for a single physician right now. She's my associate CMIO, so that we can test it out. And the plan is to expand it to a group of other physicians to say, is this something that is relevant in the Canadian context? We'll come back next year and give you some more information with that information. So while happy to take questions, I think we'll either do it at the end or what have you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jessa, for sharing your SickKids story. It's very inspiring, and then congratulations to you and the entire team that's on the screen right now. We'll take the questions at the end. So up next, we welcome Karen Stephens, Project Director, Community eHealth, Government of New Brunswick, and Aidan Lee, Director, EMR Certification Program, Technology and Integration, OntarioMD. Over to you, Karen and Aidan.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I had to unmute myself. I just wanted to let you know I'm Karen Stephens, and I've been working in community health space since 2013 with primary focus in standing up, expanding, and sustaining EMR programs.
And good day, everybody. I'm Aidan Lee, the Director of the EMR Certification Program at OntarioMD, and I've been with the program since 2015. In today's session, you'll learn about how the Government of New Brunswick and OntarioMD's partnership has created a winning formula for the physicians and vendors. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Karen.
Let's just start with a little bit of background around Government of New Brunswick and our EMR program. So the Government of New Brunswick is fundamentally responsible for the delivery of programs and services to its citizens. The provincial EMR program was initiated in 2012 with a goal to support clinicians in the delivery of quality care to its patients. The province engaged the New Brunswick Medical Society, NBMS, through their subsidiary Volante to deliver the program. In that instance, a single EMR vendor model was used, offering a bilingual EMR to clinicians. As that program progressed and things were looked at from that perspective, a comprehensive review of the program in 2019 occurred, and it resulted in a decision to move to an open market. This allowed for other EMRs to enter the province, and this new approach was initiated in January of 2021, in part to offer clinicians more EMR choice, something that they had been asking for a number of years, to improve EMR adoptions through the fact that physicians now can adopt multiple EMRs, and to gain greater access to EMR innovation. In opening up the market, the province believed it was critical clinicians choose from EMRs that met a minimum standard for EMR functionality, privacy, and security. In doing so, EMRs that met this standard would be permitted to connect to provincial integrations. Unique to New Brunswick is the need to ensure the availability of bilingual EMRs to ensure clinic offices can work in their language of choice. And that always presents opportunities and some challenges in doing so. With this as the backdrop, the province determined that it was necessary to develop an EMR certification process. New Brunswick is reasonably small, so bringing an NB-specific certification process to life at the speed required seemed daunting and beyond our existing capacity and budget. So as a result, to further inform our way forward, GMB performed a pan-Canadian jurisdictional scan. We needed to understand how other jurisdictions were addressing their EMR requirements and certification. As you can imagine, the variety of approaches for certification was certainly broad. We found them being a very light certification with some level of attestation to a very comprehensive approach and process. Ultimately, the government of New Brunswick determined it needed a number of things: a certification process that was mature, comprehensive, and sustainable; specifications that have met at a minimum reasonably aligned to GNB's original RFP requirements; a program that could be positioned quickly to offer their certification services, and within that certification environment, have existing vendors with certified EMR offerings that could be quickly positioned to enter the NB market. Considering these requirements, Ontario's certification program stood out. And as a result, we selected OntarioMD as our certification partner. Through this process, the government of New Brunswick engaged in a number of the services offered by OntarioMD. First and foremost, strategic planning. The active process of strategic review, looking at our collective EMR requirement roadmaps, as well as considering the broader pan-Canadian and jurisdictional landscapes, was key to our strategic review. Ultimately, the goal was to share knowledge, experience, and future planning to enable synergies and alignment where possible. From GNB's perspective, given our size and capacity, adopting existing approaches is good for the province, the vendors, and our clinician community. Obviously, front and center is EMR certification and validation. GNB is utilizing the full breadth of OntarioMD certification and validation process, from the application process right through EMR validation out to reference site assessments. And we are doing that to support both EMRs that are offering both French and English solutions. GNB still maintains EMR integration conformance within our own purview. And the comprehensive nature of certification provides a level of assurance in the capabilities of the EMR offerings being made available in New Brunswick. And that assurance is important to us as we can now pass that on to our clinicians. Beyond that, specification management. GNB has generally adopted OMD specifications. I mean, obviously building specifications is a daunting task in and of itself. So being able to adopt them was a critical part of the assessment. However, there are some jurisdictional specificities that New Brunswick had. So we created jurisdictional guides for New Brunswick, and that were used to support GNB's unique terminologies and requirements. But these were kept, as I said, to a minimum. We continue to work with OntarioMD to support specification evolution over time. The next item that was critical to us was vendor management, and this is the one area that really helps us in sustainability. Once certification is complete, ongoing engagement with vendors is critical. GNB participates in these processes with OntarioMD, allowing us to ensure that New Brunswick perspective is shared and considered. Underpinning all of this, the certification process is OntarioMD's vendor certification agreement that was mutually expanded to support multi-jurisdictional considerations. It presents vendor obligations for initial and ongoing alignment to certification requirements. And as I said, very key to the sustainability of certification for EMRs. As we look to the future, we are considering additional certification services such as OntarioMD taking on some new integration conformances, taking on new features within the primary EMR components, and even expanding out into clinical engagement where associates could potentially help clinicians improve their use of their EMR. Over to you, Aidan.
So just a bit of background of our vision here for OMD. So OMD certification program is well rooted in Ontario. It initially started supporting primary care physicians in adopting an EMR, and now supporting the mature use of an EMR by advancing EMR integrated solutions at the point of care. Some examples of EMR integrated solutions in Ontario include Health Report Manager, Ontario Laboratory Information System, and the Digital Health Drug Repository, just to name a few. These integrated solutions you can learn more about on our OMD website. So there currently are 15 OMD certified EMR products in Ontario, managed by 11 different EMR vendors. There are 2 vendors who have more than one certified product with us, which is the difference in the numbers there. These vendors participate across other jurisdictions in Canada and have over the years expressed some of the challenges they have experienced in the EMR digital health landscape. For example, while there are other EMR certifications across Canada with similar requirements and expectations, and may represent similar requirements but slightly different, both either functional or non-functional, they would still require the vendor to fully redemonstrate, or actually in some cases would require a retooling of the product by the EMR vendor to meet those needs. This adds time and of course cost to the vendor. As well, over the years, OMD has continued to evolve the certification program to meet the needs of the landscape, both clinical workflow and provincial expectations. And more recently, we've been able to turn our program into a set of distinct services, or what we like to call it, certification as a service. Some components that include specifications, validation, vendor certification management. While our validation service has been leveraged by other provincial programs, for example, OntarioMD has been acting on behalf of Ontario Health's Virtual Visits Verification Program, where we validate the vendor's products for its alignment to a set of virtual visit standards that are published by Ontario Health. We've been continuing to look to expand our certification services to others. So in come the government of New Brunswick. So the partnership of the government of New Brunswick has enabled us to leverage our certification as a service and enabled us to begin the journey to help advance some of the concerns raised by EMR vendors. For example, creating a digital health landscape consistent across provincial jurisdictions and minimizing the retooling needed by EMR vendors with consistent set of expectations. All right, next slide.
So what were the benefits that were, we believe, achieved as part of this partnership? We were able to significantly reduce the development time for our NB certification process, and this enabled us to expedite the opening of the EMR market in New Brunswick. This also directly led to giving physicians more choice in certified EMRs. And ensuring physicians have certified EMRs to choose from gives them the confidence that their EMR meets the required standards for functionality, privacy, and security. Combining certification with physician financial incentives continues to support our EMR adoption, which is a critical aspect that we still continue to focus on in New Brunswick. Using a certification process rather than an RFP process allows vendors to enter the NB-EMR open market at any time, rather than waiting for an RFP process to enter. Vendor EMR offerings already certified by Ontario can enter the province with significantly reduced time, effort, and cost, as noted by Aidan in his previous statements. It positions vendors to continually innovate their EMRs with the intent that these innovations can be utilized across jurisdictions. And importantly, patients can be confident that their PHI is protected and that their clinicians have access to a more comprehensive patient record. New Brunswick's partnership with OntarioMD is truly a win-win, and it goes beyond just the win for us. It extends beyond us to include vendors, physicians, patients, as well as supporting other participants in Canada's digital health ecosystem. The highlights are really selecting an established certification program improves costs, enables EMR market entry, increases EMR adoption, and provides quality care to our patients. And the opportunities for synergy and solutions and technology standards minimizes the change, effort, and cost for all parties.
And as I noted, OMD was looking to expand its services to other digital health programs. So with our partnership with the government of New Brunswick, we've been able to take that next step in expanding and extending our certification services beyond Ontario. So with the partnership, we've also begun our journey to realize our vision in creating an EMR certification that has a consistent set of expectations across EMR digital health landscape, one jurisdiction at a time.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen and Aidan, for sharing with us your expertise on advanced EMR quality and integration, right? This is such an important topic to unleash, I would say, the full potential of data in Canada to the benefits of healthcare systems and ultimately patients. So congratulations for everything that you have done. We are really crunching time. We only have 1 minute left. So I would like to invite all the attendees to join our exhibitors for networking and discussions in the virtual trade show, access at the top of your screen. Thank you very much, everyone, again, for joining us. Thank you for the panelists and speakers. I'll see you, everyone, at some point, sometime soon.